the very thing that's keeping you up at night is something that God settled before you were even born? You see, fear is a thief, but not the kind of thief that breaks in your window or picks a lock, but it's the kind that slips into your mind at 2 a.m. in the morning and steals your sleep and your strength. And millions of us are living paycheck to paycheck, wondering if there will ever be enough money, enough food, enough time, enough anything. And most of that worry is not protecting you. It's paralyzing you. Fear feels like it's preparing you for something. It feels like it's preparing you for tomorrow, but really it's just poisoning your today. And in this video, we're going to unpack one verse, just one verse. And this verse has the power to pull the plug on your panic. And by the end of this video, you're going to walk away with something that you can't buy, that you can't borrow, that you can't manufacture on your own. I'm talking about peace, real peace, not because your problems disappeared, but peace because you finally understand where peace comes from. And so I'll be honest with you. There was a season in my life, and you probably know my story, when fear had me by the throat. I didn't know if the bills would get paid. I didn't know if the next opportunity would come. I didn't know any of that. I remember lying awake at night, just running the numbers in my head, numbers that never added up, no matter how many times I recalculated. And worry was not just a visitor in my life back then. It had moved in, unpacked its bags, and lived rent-free in my head. And so, can I tell you something? You're not alone in this room. Almost every one of us has laid in that same dark room, that's done the same math in our head, felt that same knot in our stomach. And maybe for you, maybe it's not money. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's your children, your marriage, your future. I don't know what it is for you. But see, fear does not care what shape it takes. It just wants a seat at your table. And here's the tension that we've got to sit with for a second. If God, and this is the question that we're asking unconsciously, if God really is who he say he is, why do I still spend so many nights worrying like he's not? If he is who he say he is, why do I keep worrying? And that question is exactly where Jesus wants to meet us. And the verse that I want to share with you today is from Matthew 6:25. And this is Jesus speaking in Matthew 6:25. And he says, "Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes?" And that's Jesus in Matthew 6:25. And so let's break that down. Why does Jesus, the first thing Jesus said is therefore. Why does Jesus say therefore? Well, therefore is a connector. It's this Jesus saying, based on everything that I just told you, here's what comes next. And so I didn't read it to you, but if you go back and read Matthew 6, Jesus is talking to them. He's teaching them. Right before this verse, Jesus has been teaching about treasure and about serving one master instead of two. And he says, you can't serve two masters. You either going to serve one or serve the others, but you can't serve the money as a master or serve me as your God. And so Jesus was building a case. And at the conclusion of that case is this. He says, you cannot serve both God and money because your true treasure is safe with him. And you don't have to be afraid anymore. And that's basically what he's saying. And so the takeaway here is simple. Jesus is not offering an opinion. He is speaking as the one in charge, the truth. He's connecting your peace directly to your trust. And Proverbs 3:5 backs this up, when it tells us to trust in the Lord with all your heart. You see, trust always comes before peace, never after it. And then the next question is, why does Jesus say, don't worry about your life? Well, here's something powerful. The original word for worry in this verse, it means distracted. It means anxious and distracted. That's what it means. Being anxious, and that anxious causes you to be distracted. But this is the picture that I want you to picture in your mind. I want you to picture being pulled in two different directions at once. Picture a tug of war, a rope in a tug of war. That's what worry does to your mind. It splits your focus between trusting God and trying to control everything yourself. And so the takeaway here is that worry is not just an emotion. It's actually a tug of war for your trust. And Philippians 4:6 gives us the way to win that tug of war. It says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. Now, what does that mean? Basically, it means trade your anxiety for prayer. Instead of being anxious, pray. That's what it means every single time. Now, the next question that I have is, well, why does Jesus say, don't worry about what you'll eat or what you'll drink? You see, food and water were not guaranteed in Jesus' day. There was no guarantee. There was no grocery store on every corner. Back then, there was no Publix or no Kroger's that you can go to. Or if you're in Texas, there was no H-E-B. Back then, they didn't have grocery stores on every corner. And so people depended fully on the harvest, what they planted in the ground, because it was an agricultural age at that time. And so people depended on the harvest, planting something, planting food, planting a garden and growing a harvest. That's what they depended on. And because of that, they depended on the weather. You got to have good weather to grow good crops. So it had depended on the harvest, the weather, and God's provision. God had to provide. And so when Jesus brings up eating and drinking, he's speaking straight to the deepest fear of his audience of that time. And their deepest fear was survival itself. So we don't necessarily worry about that unless you're homeless. We got grocery stores. There's food, right? And so the takeaway is this. If God fed his people manna in the wilderness in Exodus 16, and if he fed Elijah by the ravens in 1 Kings 17, that means he has not lost his ability to provide for you. He's not lost that ability. God can still provide for you. Psalms 34:10 promises that those who seek the Lord will lack no good thing. And so the next question is, why does Jesus say that you should not worry about clothes and what you'll wear? Well, clothing back then was not something that you just picked up cheap and quick. You couldn't just go to Temu and get you an outfit back then. It took time, it took labor and money to even make the clothes. Like somebody had to make those clothes. And so worrying about clothes for them was not shallow. It was a real weighty concern. It was a real concern. And so I want you have to picture who Jesus is talking to at this time. You have to put yourself there in that moment. And so Jesus, he takes that seriously, and he points his listeners to something even bigger. Even though, again, clothes at that time was something big. It might be something big for you today, but for them, it was really something big. But Jesus gives them something even bigger. And so this is what he's saying, basically. And so the takeaway that I want you to get here is the same God who made garments for them, the same God who made garments for Adam and Eve in Genesis 3:21, who is the same God who dresses the lilies of the field in a beauty that they didn't earn. That same God. And so that same God who dresses the lilies of the field is fully capable of covering you too. And then, why does Jesus ask the question of, is not life more than food and the body more than clothes? Well, this is the perspective shift of the whole passage. Jesus is not saying food and clothes don't matter. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that food and clothes matter, but it's not the point of your life. That's not the point of your life. Your life was never meant to be measured by food and clothes. Your life was never meant to be measured by your bank account or your closet. And so the takeaway here is you were made for something deeper, something bigger. You were made for fellowship with God himself. Matthew 16:26 asks the question, what does it profit a person to gain the whole world but lose their own soul? That's what we're talking about here. And so chasing provision while neglecting your purpose is one of the greatest losses there is. And so here's your challenge this week. The next time worry taps you on the shoulder at 2 a.m., I want you to do three things. Three things for me. First thing is name it. Say it out loud. Say whatever it is that you're actually scared of, whatever it is that you're afraid of. Because here's the thing, fear loses its power the moment it's exposed. And then the second thing is take it to God in prayer. Right there in that moment, take it to God in prayer the way that Philippians 4:6 tells us to. Because it says, again, be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, be thankful, present your request to God. That's what it says. And then the third thing is to remind yourself out loud of one thing that God has done for you, one thing that God has already provided you with. You can think of something. Think of something that God has already provided you with and be thankful for that. That's why that in Philippians 4:6 it said with thanksgiving. So you have to have some gratitude. Be thankful to God for what he's already done. And if we can do this, can you imagine what would happen if every believer actually lived this out? Marriages would breathe easier because husbands and wives would stop fighting over fear-based finances. Churches would grow bolder because congregations stopped shrinking back from risk and started stepping out on faith. Communities would soften because people won't be consumed by their own survival, and they'll finally have room in their hearts to help their neighbor. And maybe, just maybe, a generation that's raised on anxiety would finally get to watch what it looks like and feels like to trust God with a whole, unafraid heart. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of Matthew 6:25. It's not the absence of problems, but it's the presence of peace. And so I hope this blessed you. I hope you got something out of this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.